Greetings, my name is Chris Chatmon, founder and CEO of Kingmakers of Oakland. We believe in uplifting, empowering, and transforming the narrative for Black boys in education. Too often, our young kings are labeled, misunderstood, and boxed into systems that don't see their brilliance. That's why we created Portraits of a King, a powerful docuseries that centers the voices, journeys, and triumphs of Black boys. And now, we bring you our latest installment, Beyond Labels, a 6-episode exploration into the diverse learning styles and experiences of young Black men. This series is not just about challenges, it's about strength, creativity, and the genius that thrives beyond conventional expectations. Alongside these young kings, we bring the voices of educators, experts, and guardians who walk with them, providing insight, advocacy, and the support needed to reimagine what learning can be. Through these stories, we challenge the stigma around special education and push for an education system that recognizes and nurtures every child's potential. Because when we uplift our kings, we uplift our communities. Welcome to Portraits of a King, Beyond Labels. Let's change the narrative together.
The word neurodiversity, which is now being really taken back by young people, is a really empowering word, right? About 20% of the population are neurodiverse. There's a lot of categories that fit under that. Words that people are probably familiar with: autism, ADHD, dyslexia. What it really means, though, is when you put a kid in a quote-unquote traditional learning environment, there's about 20% of the population that's going to need something different. It cuts across every race, class, gender. So once you're able to know you're not alone, to extend your hand to somebody who might be feeling a little bit alone as well, that's where you start to find community and you find a way to love across difference.
I just wanna see you rise to the sky, better shine, know your mama raised the sun. They gon' wanna see you set too soon, don't run. Stand strong, 10-toe to the dirt, low funds, but it's all in the work and the strength of the lungs. Deep breath, don't stress, put it all in the heart.
Whether it's language around race or ethnicity or disability, people worry that they're gonna say the wrong thing. And so sometimes what happens is that people try not to say anything at all. For a long time, people will use this word special as a somewhat euphemism for disability, but then it's also become an insult. As we work to make kids more self-aware and learn that their disability isn't a sentence of what's wrong with them, but something to help them be more aware of what they need, it's also helping families understand that.
Being a parent of a Black boy with an IEP has made me a much better teacher and an astute parent, but also more compassionate for parents that I serve.
I think that the education system has really struggled to develop structures on supporting our Black students and really understanding how to educate them well. It's historic racism that's come to fruition and is still in existence. There's been a lot of work around it, even in our district, and we have shown progress, and there's been some successes. But I believe that it's just really making sure that we're supporting our teachers and continuing to support our teachers and understanding how to develop instruction that all of our students can access.
One of the things with Black boys who've gone through the educational system, in particular special ed system, is that their diagnosis has always been the one that's been more hindering for what they can do afterwards. The suspension rate and expulsion rate, and particularly of young Black boys in elementary school, needs to be looked at. And so when people talk about the school to prison pipeline, that's that pipeline.
Some students are masking, some students are undiagnosed, some students are failing because nobody sees what their needs are. Inclusion for me is an interesting word because I really think everybody in public schools, private schools, should have an IEP or some sort of individualized program because we all learn in a different way.
An IEP is an individual education program. It is a legal document that prescribes and describes what the district and teachers will be doing to support a student. So when someone says special education, that is from having an IEP.
If I was sitting here today in a wheelchair and I needed to get into this building with a ramp because I'm in a wheelchair and there's some steps outside, no one would question it. But if I need a ramp into a book, now this starts to get a little more complicated. So we often misdiagnose or undiagnose Black boys, and we are literally not giving them ramps. We are forcing them to get through school the way that if somebody was in a wheelchair had to get into this building without a ramp. They are crawling on their hands and knees up the steps. I've seen it done. It's awful.
By the 4th grade, they're dropping out mentally. They're there, but they're dropping out mentally because they don't see themselves. They don't see themselves in the front of the classroom. They don't see themselves in the principal's office. They don't see themselves in these roles that would want you to say, oh, this is an environment I could be in.
Representation totally matters. And I think for our Black students to see adults who are successful and educated and there and caring for them, but can relate to them in ways that not everybody can, I think is super important. Yeah.
And if you don't look like your students, that's still okay. You need to make sure you understand them, though. That doesn't mean that we're not pushing them and challenging them. We don't want to make it seem like these kids can't achieve, because they can.
One of the most difficult students I had wasn't necessarily because of our direct relationship, but it was because of their relationship with their mother, or their lack of a relationship with their mother. I called his mom and I said, so I feel like I need to communicate with him differently. Are you okay with that? And she said, do whatever you need to do. I'm trying to save this boy's life. Because he was ready to leave. I knew if he had gone off campus, we had lost him. So I said, I have your graduation date. Whew, I feel emotional. I said, I have your graduation date on my calendar. When you're ready to achieve that, you meet me inside. And I left him. And I went upstairs and I was like, oh, Lord. And so he just paced in front of the school. And he came back in, but he didn't come upstairs. And so I was like, okay, he's upset. He's not upset with me. He's upset, right? And he needs to work that out. So that's what being a Black teacher and being able to connect with young boys in particular, something about that firm but loving care that they understand. Some of my experiences with Black boys have been the hardest, but also the most rewarding.
Everything up to this point in our conversation has been about the deficits. We haven't yet talked about the gifts, and we know there are gifts that come with these labels as well. We don't talk about that. Where do we cultivate innovation? Where do we cultivate divergent but innovative thinking? If 20% of your students are going to be neurodiverse, then 20% of your training should be around supporting kids who are neurodiverse.
If we can reframe how disabilities are seen within a general ed context and within an inclusive context, we really make things better for all kids. That's something that I will keep working toward, no matter what position.
Unless or until we are able to have more Black professionals in these spaces of diagnosing and understanding behaviors of Black children, I think we'll continue to be misdiagnosed.
You can be the best teacher. You can have all the knowledge of how to do all these things. But if you can't connect with that kid emotionally, they're not going to really grow the same way you would want them to grow. And I think teaching teachers, that is important to change that stigma and to make a really positive effect on the youth.
It's time to change the narrative. I mean, that's why this storytelling matters. That's why the stories that I know you're capturing of our young people matters. We got to learn to love across our difference. And then I think it also is powerful to know that their story is a unique one. They don't have to be somebody else's story. They can be their own. Let's quit trying to stigmatize each other for being different and start trying to love each other for being different. It's our differences that make it all really beautiful.
My name is Allan Chatman. Cary Kaufman.
Aruna Subramanian.
David Fink.
Shia Shabazz Smith.
And this
This
And this
is my portrait.
is my portrait.
My portrait.
Is my portrait.
is my portrait.
Boy, you gon' make it, be patient. You gonna spread your wings and fly. Tell them let your flag go, be that bold. Go and look them in their eyes. Boy, you gon' make it.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. In the episodes ahead, you'll hear directly from our young kings, their struggles, their triumphs, and the brilliance that defines them. You'll also meet educators and guardians standing beside them, shaping a future where every Black boy is seen, valued, and empowered. This is just the beginning. Get ready to witness resilience, genius, and the power of possibility. Stay with us because these stories will move you.
We've been lost in the dark for a whole year, but the end of the tunnel getting so near. See the vision from a distance and it's so clear. No fear, yeah, spread your wings, do your thing. Never let them take the gold that you so bring.